As a student of law, we have always understood the significance and importance of jurisprudence as to how it evolves in various perspectives. And similarly, the perspectives of social, society, etc., also pave way in the transformation of law. How this journey begins and what is the impact of social transformation in India through law is today's topic, wherein Professor Dr. T.R. Subramanya, Dean CMR University, School of Legal Studies, Bangalore, is taking us forward. And we've all seen that Professor Subramanian is an erudite speaker, and it is always quite fascinating, food for thought to learn this during this process. Thank you, sir. And we are joining after quite a time this time.
Yeah.
Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Very good evening to Mr. Vikas and your team and all the learned participants who are here to listen. Now, when we speak of social transformation, naturally a question comes up whether it is limited to India or it is part of the entire spectrum of the international community. So when we take up this matter, naturally the question comes in. The social transformation and a movement on this subject has taken place right from the establishment of the Charter of United Nations. When the Charter of United Nations came to be established, there were only 51 members who were part of the United Nations, who were called as the original members of the United Nations. Now, the Charter of United Nations came into existence and it was signed and came into force on October 24th, 1945, after a deliberation of almost 4 years. So Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt, Winston Churchill happened to be the Prime Minister of the State of England, and Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt happened to be the President of the State of the United States. They met in a battleship in the Atlantic. And in the battleship in Atlantic in the year 1940 itself, they called themselves as the United Nations. Then on 6th January 1941, they called themselves as the United Nations and its representatives to form a future United Nations. Thereafter, the drafting committee and other members sat and it came into force on October 24th, as I just mentioned to you. Now, under the Charter of United Nations, it starts with the stirring words, "We the peoples of the United Nations." When I speak of we the peoples of the United Nations, as the legal scholars in the area of international law point out, the Charter not merely speaks for states, mainly it speaks for the individuals all through an entire world. It speaks for their protection. It speaks for their improvement. It speaks for their development. It speaks for the protection and promotion of human rights. And it speaks on everything. And that is how the Charter came to be established. And under the Charter of United Nations, the principle of the Charter, remember, is applicable between states, between nations and large and small. So a state may be the state of the United States or the state of Soviet Russia, or the state of Canada, the largest states. But there may be a small state like the state of Nauru. We just remember today maybe about 7.25 square kilometers, but it is still a state in international law. Under no circumstances there can be discrimination regarding development and developmental projects, even to such tiny states. There are many. For example, Singapore is just 890 square kilometers when it came to be established. Today, because of the reclamation, it has included, remember, many other kilometers to its province as its territory. Now, when we go further, the other aspect that is being spoken is the Charter of the United Nations had 3 purposes. One important purpose happened to be the first and foremost to prevent wars. To prevent wars came in these words, that is the maintenance of international peace and security. Remember, peace cannot be achieved without security, and both security and peace go together. That is the first objective. The second one happened to be when peace as well as security is restored, the states should come together and assist each other. Now, this is called as the law of cooperation. So man cannot live by bread alone, because in the existence, during the course of his life, he has to come into contact with the people, contact with the states, and thereafterwards, naturally, they will be in a position to come together for self-help and mutual help and respect for each other's. So if international cooperation is achieved, that only speaks about development and development of every individual in all spheres. Then the third important development that speaks about happened to be the promotion and protection of human rights. So when there is peace, there will be cooperation between states. When there is cooperation, naturally there will be promotion and protection of human rights. These are the objectives which are being spoken. Now, when I speak of cooperation, naturally the Charter of United Nations, remember, wanted to treat all the developing countries and the least developed countries equally. And under Article 1, Paragraph 3, it is simply pointed out discrimination based on race, sex, and religion is absolutely prohibited. See, discrimination based on race, sex, and religion is absolutely prohibited. So, in order to achieve cooperation, these are all necessities. In order to achieve development and achieve social transformation, these are very much essential. Now, the Charter of United Nations did not stop at this. Now, over a period of time, in the next almost 50 years, it was in a position to establish over 145 to 150 specialized agencies. And these specialized agencies have a special purpose. And the entire purpose is to, remember, to achieve development, to the most developing society or the underdeveloped society or the least developed society attains the status of development. The very purpose is to see the standard of living of these people are improved. That is why wonderful projects have been carried out. And these wonderful projects went to the extent of giving a helping hand to all the developing countries and the least developing countries of the world. Now, I just intend to speak to you for our purpose today. I will be discussing in the first 15 minutes or 16 minutes about what we call as the role that is being played by the United Nations in achieving the concept of development in the developing and least developed countries. Now, the first task is to see the United Nations, the moment it came into force, thought of these countries, poorer countries, the poorest countries, whose per capita income in those days were not even $50. Now, in such a situation, it established two international organizations. One organization, which is known as UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, which came to be established in the year 1964. Now, today, it is a specialized agency of the United Nations whose headquarters are actually placed in Geneva, in Switzerland. Now, you may ask me what exactly are the purposes of the UNCTAD. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development has come into existence only to see that the developing countries naturally integrate along with the developed world. In order to integrate along with the developed world, there is a necessity to come together and discuss their problems. And the UNCTAD became a platform to discuss these problems. So UNCTAD for the first time served as a platform. And they would always request that your policy matters, which are to be attained at a future date, must come through us. Please come and discuss us. So most of the policy matters and matters relating to sustainable development and the sustainable goals were taken up by the UNCTAD. And it went on with advising on policy matters to almost all the least developed countries and developing countries. Now, the second organ happened to be UNIDO, that is United Nations Industrial Development Organization. UNIDO came into force in the year 1966, and UNIDO's headquarters are actually in Austria. Now, this agency is established only to help the least developed countries. So that means the United Nations has a great concern to protect the interest of the least developed countries. Remember, it would always help on all. Yeah, one of the objectives is the very objective of the UNIDO is inclusive. When I speak of inclusive, all states which are poor, whose per capita income is below normal, must be given confidence. When once confidence is given, remember, assistance will come. And assistance will come through several projects. And these projects naturally are carried out for the welfare of everyone. That means social transformation through the United Nations has started taking place in the as early as 1960, 64, 65, 66, and then on. It was moving like anything in the fastest speed. And a task is being entrusted. They will be given loans. They will be given technical expertise. And the United Nations experts would go, examine, then prepare a budget. And this budget will be implemented for the welfare of these least developed countries of the world. That is what UNIDO has been doing all through till this date. Now, the other important organs, other important aspects which I just intend to bring to you happen to be there were a series of resolutions which were passed. Now, these resolutions which were passed by the United Nations, especially, generally meant for the welfare of the developing and least developed countries. Now, you may be interested to know, because unless I speak about this, nobody will be in a position to appreciate the concept of what social change in this country. Now, it has a great history. Now, for example, the moment the United Nations came to be established, in the year 1952, it adopted a unanimous resolution. Now, you may be interested to know what exactly is this unanimous resolution is all about. The first one important resolution is sovereignty over the natural resources. What does it mean? See, all these developing countries were colonies. Least developed countries were colonies. When they were given independence, naturally, what was happening was the developed countries would come again to their territory in the garb of helping. And afterwards, they loot their resources, natural resources from their territory. At that time, in as early as 1952 itself, they went to the extent of pointing out each country is empowered to explore and exploit the resources by itself. That country does not require any assistance and advice. And nobody should give any assistance and advice to, remember, exploit the resources. They can take the help if they want. But then other countries should not knock off and afterwards take away the resources from their territory. Now today, remember, you think of the resources of these least developed countries and the developing countries. They're all exploited by their own men for their welfare. That is the fundamental thing. For the welfare of these people, resources are being exploited, to which the United Nations gave them a sovereign right. This is one. Now, the second one is in the year 1958, that is on December 12th, it adopted a major resolution with voice vote. Now, this voice vote happened to be the resolution on self-determination. Now, what is this self-determination is all about? Now, some of the colonies were not independent and they wanted to become independent. Now, when they wanted to become independent, naturally, the developed world or the former colonial masters were hindering, or preventing them to get independence. In such situations, the General Assembly resolution, which was passed with the voice vote, pointed out each country is competent to determine what it wants. And remember, self-determination simply means each country is empowered to establish a government of its choice. Ultimately, the people of these countries are sovereign. It went to the extent of pointing out the people of these least developed countries are sovereign. When the people are sovereign, they can have a government of their choice, and outside agencies or other members in United Nations are not supposed to interfere in the welfare of these people. See, this is being done. This is naturally done so that the countries who have become independent. The countries which are called as infant states, the countries where not exposed to developed world, developed economy, must be in a position to, remember, chalk out a plan of action. And through this plan of action, they should be in a position to develop the economies of their own country. Then in the year 1960, another resolution came in. And this resolution happened to be a major resolution which was passed with a voice vote, granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples. There were still a few countries. One of them happened to be Namibia, that is, it was ruled by the state of South Africa. It was not given independence. And the white regime went to the extent of, remember, suppressing and oppressing the rights of the people, the basic rights of the people in Namibia. There were many other such countries, and these countries were just, remember, asking for independence, asking for the ouster of these colonial masters. So at that time, timely, there was a resolution which was passed by General Assembly, and the resolution pointed out, naturally, all the colonies are empowered to get independence. And this independence will be given to them based on the choice of their people. The government is established by the people, and the people are sovereign. Any government, whichever form of government, they can prefer a communist government or a democratic government or a oligarchic form of government. And that will be free, and that can come in contact with the United Nations once it becomes a member. All kind of assistance will be given to that. That is what they spoke about. Now, after 1962, another major resolution came in, and two resolutions. One is in the year 1970, and that is the important things, the principles and declaration of international law, governing economic rights and duties of states. Now, general principles of law, international law, governing economic rights and duties of states, which was called as the Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States. Now, this Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States, now only 2 or 3 articles I shall speak to you so that you understand the point better. Now, one happened to be Article 18, and other one happened to be Article 24. Article 24 of the Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States went to the extent of pointing out the developed world must be very liberal in their thought process. They must be very liberal in their thought process so as to help the least developed countries as well as the developing countries of the world. And always all programs and the program of action carried by the developed world must be in a position to take, remember, take into confidence these developing countries, and they are not supposed to allow to disintegrate these countries from the United Nations. Every step which is being followed, every practice that is being done, every attitude which is being, remember, adapted and adopted by it must be in accordance with the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, was the expression that is being provided under Article 24. Now, there was one more article, that is Article 18. When it spoke about Article 18, Article 18 simply points out there are certain steps which are to be taken by the developed world. And these steps must be in a position to help the developing countries. Now, when I speak of this, you may ask me what kind of help. For example, take it this way. Now, they are supposed to enter into treaties. When they enter into treaties, naturally, the treaties which are entered with the developing countries or with the developed world must be in a position to benefit economically to these countries so that their economic progress and prosperity take place in their own countries because they are poor. Now, having said about this, I just intend to speak to you one more declaration that was adopted, which nobody speaks. See, this is all international law. It is part of international economic law. And most of the teachers don't even make a mention of this when they speak about social transformation. Now, the Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States happened to be a major resolution which was adopted by the United Nations, which is generally called as the New International Economic Order, NIEO. New international economic order, what does it contemplate? New international economic order simply contemplates that the program of action under no circumstances should interfere with the sovereignty of the developing states and the least developed states. So when the developed states interferes, tries to help, it should not interfere with the sovereignty of these poorer nations. It should be in a position to give assistance. It should be in a position to give aid. It should help in the economic prosperity of these countries. Now you may ask me, how it can help? First and foremost, it was saying, wherever possible, you enter into treaties with these countries. And whenever you enter into treaties, remember there are certain regions wherein you can enter MFN, most favored nation treatment. Now, through most favored nation treatment, you can help the progress and prosperity of these countries. That is the fundamental point that is being spoken. Now, in addition to this, it went to the extent of pointing out you can enter into bilateral treaties as well. Under the bilateral treaties, remember, you can have any kind of treaties. For example, these days, you come to know the treaties which are being signed with the developing countries. For example, promotion and protection of investment. Now, under the promotion and protection of investments, there are a few articles which will be included in the treaty for the economic advancement of these developing countries and the least developed countries. And a country which comes in the name of investment must not interfere with the sovereignty of the receiving state. All of them ultimately are spoken for the welfare of, remember, the developing as well as the least developed countries of the world. Now, having spoken about this, let me speak to you something relating to the social transformation in India. Now, the social transformation in India is nothing but a social revolution that has taken place in this country very peacefully. Now, when I speak about the social revolution that has taken place in this country, remember, these changes have been brought, especially through and under the Constitution of India. Now, you may ask me how one can say that it has taken place through and under the Constitution of India. When I speak about this, remember the first part, the part third speaks about the fundamental rights. And these rights and the other provisions which are envisaged in the Constitution can be enforced through the complementary part, which is naturally called the Directive Principle of State Policy. See, under the Directive Principle of State Policy, you have so many provisions, which I will speak at least a few of the articles so that you understand the point better. Now, for example, under the Constitution of India, take it this way. You know, first is democracy, the second one is socialism, then secularism, then progress and prosperity for everyone. Now, the other one is Article 15 of the Constitution. Article 15 of the Constitution simply points out gender discrimination in any form is absolutely prohibited. There cannot be any gender discrimination based on caste, based on place of birth, based on sex. That is why under Article 14, right to equality being assured. Then thereafter, we come to the Directive Principle of State Policy itself. When we come to the Directive Principle of State Policy, you just look to Article 39 of the Constitution. 39 of the Constitution simply provides that a person who is not able to defend himself in the court of law, he is entitled to be given the help of a lawyer, a counsel. And this person naturally consults him, defends him, and his expenses are met by the government through the Legal Service Authority. See, this is only, for example, a poorest person who is not able to defend himself. When the rich people go to the court of law to knock off the property, he is defended through a lawyer appointed by the government whose expenses are naturally given by an agency of the government. The second one is Article 39 of the Constitution speaks about equal pay for equal work. So under no circumstances, there cannot be any discrimination between men and women. And if discrimination is made, remember, it is void. You just think of the Equal Remuneration Act of 1979. And in the Equal Remuneration Act of 1976. And in this legislation, naturally, remember, it speaks about equality in wages. There cannot be discrimination between men and women. See, unless these provisions are introduced, there cannot be a social transformation. Because this social transformation has taken place and is taking place very peacefully in a country like India. Now you go to Article 42 of the Constitution. Under Article 42 of the Constitution of India, you have certain provisions which naturally speak of maternity benefits. Now, when I speak about maternity benefit, remember, it is today, she is given almost 6 months leave, 26 weeks. And of which, remember, you can avail the leave before delivery up to almost, remember, 10 weeks. And the remaining 60 weeks after delivery. And this has to be paid by full salary. The concerned lady, if he is pregnant and takes leave, maternity benefit, naturally entitled to get full salary for a period of 6 months. This is to see that the future generation of this country or the young newborn persons of this country naturally, remember, come of age, and they become leading citizens of this country. And then the other one is the important development that is being spoken is there are many social legislations in the area of criminal law, which was passed after the 2013 incidents. And I can just tell you, for example, in the earlier penal code 351A, 354A, B, C, D. Now women need protection. Now you just go to the report of the famous committee which was given in the year 1996, Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan. Because they are to be treated equally. And that is the purpose of enacting a legislation of this type in a country like this. Now, for example, you come to the present century, when you come to the present century, 21st century, in the year 2021, what we call as the food and security legislation was enacted. When the food and security legislation was enacted, remember, naturally, there were many millions of people in this country who are not in a position to get 1 meal a day. In the circumstances such as this, first time they introduced ration cards. It was there earlier also, but comprehensively, it was completely systematized and put it in a scientific way. And those who come under the category, whose income is to a particular level as determined by a government of the day, is lower than that, is empowered to get a ration card. So they can get the, remember, benefits from the ration office. That is what is all about. How many of them get? And to one extent, because I have been a supervisor for a PhD thesis on this, almost, remember, 68 to 67%, 67 to 68% of the people get ration. That means what? At one point of time, you come under that category, simply means you are entitled to get the benefit of ration. Nobody, no citizen of this country, in this country, especially in India, should die of hunger. That is the very objective of the government of the day. And governments which come after succeeding governments as well. I am not referring to one government. There are several other measures as well have been taken. I can just make a mention of a few legislations as well so that you understand the point better for your purpose. Now, for example, take it this way, the Bank Nationalization Act of 1969. Under the Bank Nationalization Act of 1969, you might be knowing 4 banks which were leading private banks were nationalized. They were nationalized for the simple reason because they were not assisting the government in the progressive schemes which are adopted by it. When they were not adopting the progressive schemes to help the downtrodden, to help the people, naturally they were taken away by the government of India and the government itself running them. And thereafter, several schemes came in. You might be knowing there was one Janardhan Pujari, and he was the one who started giving loans to the poorest of the poor. And thereafter, remember, after 4 or 5 years, he was known as Loan Pujari. And he used to help and assist and everyone That is how, remember, the development would take place in this country. It is a social transformation, because I read the articles during the time of Pujari. And many people, even in the Indian Express and Times of India, articles used to say, this is a silent revolution. For the first time, government is coming out to help the needy, the people who are badly in need of money. And the second one happened to be the Child Labor Prohibition Act, which was passed in the year 1986. So children were made to work. They were made to work without gloves. They were made to work without any cover on their face. In extreme difficulties, they were made to work. They were made to work, remember, 15 to 16 hours a day. All of them were put an end by passing a legislation of this. Now, another legislation, important legislation, happened to be Commission of Sati. Just remember, Commission of Sati, there were people who go to the extent of pointing out sati is very much essential, and the wife in the death, in the event of the death of her husband, should jump into the funeral fire and sacrifice herself. We speak about human rights. We speak about right to life. We speak about Article 21 of the Constitution. We speak about Bill of Rights. But what was happening was, she was simply forced in a few cases. We are not going to question about remember, the rights and the wrongs of it, but then what was done by the government happened with, they prevented this, and measures are being taken. See that the sati itself as an institution cannot be acceptable in a democratic society like India. Then came the Dowry Prohibition Act as early as 1961. I was just reading the history of the Dowry Prohibition of Act. See, introduced this Dowry Prohibition Act, remember, Nehru had great difficulty. And many, because especially the families in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh were, remember, hesitant to have a legislation of this type because dowry is given in huge sums. So in such a circumstance, remember, although the legislation was drafted much earlier, legislation came through, and it, for the first time, taking and giving of dowry was prohibited. So that is the starting point. Remember, this is a social revolution at that time. I am going, just think of 1961. When the legislation was passed like this, remember, it created a revolution-like idea. From now on, you get into marriage. And when you get into marriage, you need not pay anything. Neither you should take nor you should give. Both are punishable under the law. And such a legislation was introduced. Then came the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. See, when I speak about the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940, naturally, remember, Drugs and Cosmetics Act for the first time established a regulatory mechanism. There were Unani medicines, there were Ayurveda medicines, there were local medicines, there were medicines which are herbal medicines, and they were not knowing out of which what is being made. And for the first time, they went to the extent of, remember, putting certain restrictions on this because they were subject to investigation for the first time. And penalties could be imposed. And conditions were set up. Under what conditions you are supposed to make the business? When you make the business, what type of medicines you are supposed to produce? And the medicines, in order to be called as, remember, perfect medicine, what exactly are its qualifications? All of them came as early as 1940 itself. Then came the Environment Protection Act, 1986. Remember, the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the air and the water we drink, all are polluted. And all are polluted. For the first time, the government of India has to take cognizance of this. And then came the other legislations under the aegis of the Environment Protection Act of 1986. And if this is not development and a social revolution, what else it could be? Please let me know. The other thing is Factories Act of 1948. In the Factories Act of 1948, when I am speaking mainly the amendments which are taken place. The amendments which are being brought under the law naturally speaks about, immensely it speaks about the developments that have taken place through the ages. Now, for example, then another legislation came in, what we call it the Forest Conservation Act. Forest Conservation Act of 1980. See, forest resources are being depleted on day-to-day basis. And who is responsible? We are not going to question who is responsible for it, but then conservation is very much essential. I don't know how many of you have read the Climate Change Convention. Under the Climate Change Convention, which came into force in the year 2016, every state is supposed to increase the forest cover. And the state of India has taken, remember, wonderful steps to increase its forest cover. When I speak about the state of India, remember, earlier, the forest cover of the state of India was something like 6.9783 square kilometers million. 6 million hectares of land. 6.987 6.973 hectares of land, million hectares of land under the forest cover. After we became the party to the Climate Change Convention, remember, it is being increased. I am giving the statistics of 2024. It is being increased to 7,000,104 104 hectares of land. Because the forest cover is very much essential. If biodiversity is not there, the temperature will rise. If the temperature rises, remember 1.5, it is very difficult to live. Every year, if 1.5 degree rises, naturally there will be disturbance and there will be no water. And during, remember, rainy season, there will be huge flood. Sewages which are being discharged into the seas has led to the rise in the sea level, and it has led to tsunamis. All these have to be prevented, and for which the state of India has taken so much of step in a developing country like India. Now, thereafterwards, you have other legislations as well. I have many of them. Just I was finding out which one to speak and which one not. Now, the other important legislations happen to be in the recent past. The legislations which are adopted by the government of India between 2014 to 2025. Now, when I speak about the legislations which have taken place between 2014 to 2025, before I speak about these legislations, I just intend to speak to you the developments which have taken place because of what? And because of what reason? What exactly are the causes that led to the serious developments in this country and which has transformed India as one of the fastest growing economies in the world? Now, when we speak about this, certain writers speak about 5 Ds. Now, what is this 5 Ds? Now, when I speak of 5 Ds, one is democracy. The second one is demography. And the third one is the third important thing that is being spoken after democracy and demography happen to be the diaspora, which is very much essential for a country like India. Now, what is this diaspora? Then the other one happened to be digital transformation, digital power. Now, these are a few of the things which are taking place that is responsible in enacting a legislation to promote and develop the economy of the state of India and see that everyone gets a share in this. Now, I shall explain one by one. Now, when we speak about democracy, most of the writers in this country point out, see, the institution is essentially democratic. Now, when the institution is democratic, naturally, there are certain provisions which are given under the system wherein you can go to the court of law. There are certain systems which are under 19. Remember, you can go on strike. You can go on dharna. You can go on fast. You can boycott. And at the last stage, remember, with all these dharna, boycott and strike and everything, the matter will go to the court of law and ultimately it comes down when the matter is settled by the court of law. When I speak about court of the law, it may go from the lowest court to the highest. And when the highest court decides the matter, everything will be resolved and there will be no dispute at all. That is where, see, growth takes place peacefully. And growth has taken peacefully because of the system, the legal system which you have in this country. In spite of the number of cases which are there before the courts in this country. It is very peaceful. Peacefully it is being settled. Remember, Lok Adalats are being approached now. And it is settling the disputes in a huge number of cases. And the entire system is working through, remember, democratic principles. You may not like, but then you will like once the matter is decided, either in your favor or in favor of the other person, because it is done legally. Now, the second one happened to be demography. When I speak about demography, these developments are taking place in this country because 50 to 55% of the population in this country are below the 30 years of age. And you think of the CEOs of great companies which are considered as multinationals of the West. And the CEOs happen to be from the state of India. And you think of the inventions that is taking place in this country and elsewhere. And it is nothing but the contribution of the people of this country who are not above 30, 35. So when you have a working force which can contribute to the growth of this country, naturally there will be development. I don't know whether you know this or not. See, in 24 as well as 25, in 24 there was a 6.8% growth, and 7.2% growth, and in 2025 there was almost 8.2% growth, 7.2 in 24 and 8.2 in 25. And the World Bank has gone to the extent of pointing out, yesterday some report was released where they were saying average in these 2 years there was a 6.8% growth. Now you think of the developments and the growth that is taking place in other countries of the world. And in major developed economies, it is only 0.5%, 0.5%. And in some countries, it is 2% or 2.5%. Even in China, it is not beyond 3%. When the growth is taking place naturally, remember, it is a social transformation that is taking place through peace in this country and through the law that is being adopted by it. Then you think of diversity. Now, when I speak of diversity, another D, diversity you may be knowing. Naturally, remember, there are 22 languages which are official. All the communications are made through these official languages, which is part of the Constitution, and the Constitution recognizes these languages. And there will be about 250 dialects. And these dialects are spoken in different parts of the state of India, which is part of the state of India. Now, whether you have, and remember, that is where I still remember when I was working in Bahrain, my minister always used to say, India is what? It is more than a continent. If you go to Bengal, there is a Bengali dialect. They speak in Bengal. And if you go to Oriya, remember, there will be Oriyan language. And naturally, when you come to South, Tamilians speak Tamil language, Kannadiga speak Kannada, and Andhra people speak Andhra language, Telugu language. And you have these kinds of languages which are part of the Constitution of the state of India, dialects. I am just giving you recognized dialects, 250. There will be nearly 1,000 of them. Now, that actually helps you for the growth of your culture, for the growth of your tradition, for the growth of, remember, accepting certain basic principles through peace. That is, you cannot find anywhere in the world these type of things. And it is part of the state of India. Now, there is the other one, the fourth one, which is called as digital transfer. Now, digital transfer, before I speak about digital transfer, I shall just speak to you diaspora. Now, there are as many as, remember, 35 million people who are abroad. And these 35 million people are, remember, non-resident Indians. And some of them call them as non-required Indians. They are required Indians because they are required Indians for the growth of the country, because in 2024, I am giving the statistics, they have sent money to the state of India to the tune of 135 billion. Whether you have any country in the world, 35 million people who are called as the diaspora. Remember, transferring money to the treasury of the state of India to the tune of 135 billion. Now you take the shareholders in the companies, or you take other small business units, all of them, a majority of the shares are owned by the diaspora of this country. And the developments are taking place this way, because I still remember when I was in Bahrain, there were plenty of people who had projects. Now, suppose, for example, a particular person comes from a rural Andhra Pradesh and he is working in the government and earning a good amount of salary. Then he introduces a project in his own village providing drinking water freely out of his own money. See, the development, social transformation, remember, it takes place this way. And you think of Premji, the projects which you have adopted, or think of the other business houses who have adopted under CSR. All of them ultimately to uplift the poorest of the people of this poor people of this country. Now, thereafter, I just said digital transfer. I just intend to speak to you, give you one statistics, and the statistics which is being given the world over. And it was surprising. In the month of August 2025, there were, remember, 90 billion transactions. In the month of August 2025, there were 90 billion transactions. Of the 90 billion transactions, remember, 1,24 crores. Remember, transactions, 1,24 crores of transactions have taken place. That means what? What is the transaction? The list of transactions and the money that is being transferred. Now, when I speak about the money, remember, it is huge, unimaginable for anybody. Now, this is for what? These transactions may be starting from, remember, 5 rupees to 5 crores. Maybe 5 crores to 10 crores. And I just told you the statistics. This is what is happening. 1,24 crores, remember, plus many. This is the account that is being given. And every month it is taking place. That is where the concerned person who gave the statistics was giving the statistics of the United States. In the same month, in the month of August, the money that is being transferred in the state of United States is only, remember, 3 billion. Transactions 3 billion, but not to the tune of the money which is being transferred in India. That is why, remember, I am just telling you, if the government says 8.2, we have to agree, because it is a hard fact based on statistics. They cannot lie. Here and there they may cook up, but hard fact, the transformation which is being taken place. Now you think of, sir, a maid servant in this country today. Earlier, remember, they used to walk and come to the employer's house. Now today she comes in a cycle. And if you go to their house, there is a refrigerator, there is a washing machine, and there is the other machines also. Many of them, you have mixers and other things, grinders, and the TV sets compulsory. Where was this earlier? I'm just telling you, before 2010. They were living in utter poverty. Now, this is mainly due to the schemes which are being envisaged by the government. That is where, remember, the government of India has given the statistics. I don't know how many of you have read. Recently, Mr. Jaishankar, the Foreign Minister of India, in his speech at the United Nations, has given the statistics. I'm just speaking to you the statistics which is being given by Jaishankar. Now, he was just telling you, remember, the state of India, because of the policies which are pursued for a social transformation in this country, and a social transformation which is pursued with the religious missionary zeal, was able to, remember, remove 415 million people out of poverty. That means what? 41 crores, 41.5 crores of people were removed out of poverty. And he was suggesting that a new middle class has been added to the already existing. This is the social transformation that is taking place in the state of India. Then this social transformation is based on a fair, equitable, and democratic means. So it is by equitable, fair, and democratic means. And this is the rule makers in this in this program are not supposed to subjugate the rule followers. Then it says, remember, the government of India, because of the policies which are being followed, are able to provide 495 million mudra loans. Mudra loans, when it is being provided, remember, they open an account in the State Bank of India. That means what? 49.5 crores of people in this country, remember, are having a bank account which they did not have. So the earlier generation did not have a bank account because they did not know. They were not in a position to go to the court of law. They so go to the bank and have an account in their name. The government itself has appointed, and having taken an account in their name, the money is being transferred directly. Can you have anywhere in the world wherein digitally the money is transferred to 50 crores of people? It is just unthinkable. It's a hard fact, which he himself has pointed out. Then thereafter, remember, they have programs relating to health, environment, education, and trade. Health, environment, education, and trade. And these, remember, when I speak about the health, environment, and education, and trade, the first one is, what he was saying is, they have adopted 600 projects in developing countries. And these 600 projects relating to education, health, environment, and medicine. Now, especially in the area of medicine, developing countries need lots of them. Can you ever think of, remember the medicines which we have produced in the time of COVID? And the medicine which is being provided during the time of COVID was freely distributed to almost all 90 countries of the world, which has gone up to 110. Some people speak more. But then let us, as per records, it is 110 countries we have supplied the medicine. Whether it is possible. The point is, remember, it has taken place through a social revolution in a country like India, and which is progressive in adopting its policies. Now, I just intend to give you two more instances which was suggested by Mr. Jaishankar, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs at the United Nations. Now, the other important development which has taken place happened to be the one relating to Surya Ghar. That is, remember, the ghar wherein without subsidy, you have the solar system inside the house. And naturally, 1.88 million households before April 2025, they were given. That means what? 10 lakh, almost 11 lakhs of people, 11 crores of people, 11 lakhs of people have Surya Ghar benefit. And there is supply of power through what we call as renewable source of energy, that is through the solar system of India. Then thereafter, remember, energy savings. What are the steps which are being taken under energy savings? 3.87 million LED bulbs are given, and there is no subsidy for it. It is being served by the government of India. Now, these are a few of the steps which are being taken for a social transfer, a movement which is taking place at the behest of the government with the help of the people of this country, and it is, remember, helping every one of us, and which has to be mentioned here because it's on record. It is a policy plan which is adopted by the government of India. There are many other projects which you can speak authoritatively. For example, in the area of environment. In the area of environment, remember, the government made a commitment in the year 2016 itself that will be investing as many as $300 billion to see that the fossil fuel energy is being replaced by the renewable source of energy. When I speak about the renewable source of energy, you see the biopower. Then you have power through methane and the power through gas. All of them have come to take shape. The producer of a vehicle in this country, at least one model should be based on, remember, the electric system or the biosystem. One model at least should be. It is mandatory for everyone. That is how the country is progressing, and a lot of things can be spent. And in the given stipulated time, in 1 hour, I have stated what I can. It is supposed to be from the sources which are available. I have spoken to you. I thank all the listeners once more. Thank you. Yes. Any question? If you have any question on this subject, only on this subject, not anything else, I can tell you. There are many things I could not tell because it is 1 hour, it has to be over. I didn't want anybody to wait here and listen.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It is nothing but the contribution of the people.
Yeah. So I'll just see if we have any questions.
So when you have a working force which can contribute to the growth of this country.
I was watching more on the YouTube, so YouTube has a Slack. Just hold on. Just a minute, sir.
Yeah.
So 2 people have written what we also are on the same vein, that the session was good. I don't think we have any question on the YouTube also, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for enlightening us.
Yeah.
Look, one just message. Sir. No, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.